Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining today. We'll just give it a few more minutes here, let a few more people join, and we'll start right at the top of the hour. Busy time of year for sure as we're getting back from the holiday break. Projects are starting up again. Things get pretty busy early in the new year as we ramp up projects quickly so we can hit her hard and make some good progress in 2024. But this is also a great time to take a look at some of our commissioning processes and make sure we're set up properly so that we can make the best progress and get the best productivity and best results out of our projects in 2024. So I'm glad you're here. We'll help you get some of your commissioning processes and commissioning software tools in place so that 2024 can be an amazing year. So let me just check a few settings here and make sure we're ready to go in a minute or so. Okay, I'm going to pull up the chat window here. So I've got the chat here and ready to take a look at your questions. Maybe while we're waiting here to get started, let me know in the chat where you're calling in from, what type of projects you work on, maybe what your project role is so that I can make sure I can best help you. Good morning, Frank. From Spain. Awesome. Glad to have you here. Okay, let me share my screen and we can get started here right away. Oh, not that one. Let's do that one there. Okay, looks like we're all ready to go. Let's get into some good stuff here today. Awesome. So today's discussion is going to be on how to plan and execute capital project commissioning using best-in-class commissioning project management software and best-in-class commissioning project management frameworks. You're about to get the #1 commissioning project management frameworks so that you can double your commissioning productivity and work on the biggest and best projects in the world. And this discussion is meant to be interactive. So pull up the chat window like we discussed. If at any time you have questions, shoot them in the chat window. I've got it up here too. I'll watch for your questions. I'll get them answered as we're going through the material. We'll also have a Q&A at the end. So you can ask your questions as we're going through the material. If you have questions, you can hold on to them and ask them at the end. But I want to make sure that we get your questions answered here. So pull up the chat and anything comes up, then shoot it in there. And you're definitely going to want to stay to the end of this presentation because I've got something that's very interesting for you. And it's only for you since you've joined this webinar live. Don't worry, it's not some boring PDF that you don't really want and you're never going to read. Anyways, it's something you actually need and want for commissioning. And I'll tell you how to get access to it at the end of this presentation. So be sure to stay to the end so that you don't miss out. Now, I've been using the commissioning project management frameworks we're going to discuss today on several projects. I've used these commissioning project management frameworks in the power industry, building transmission projects and power generation projects in northern Manitoba and northern Canada here. I've used these same commissioning project management frameworks in the aerospace industry, building satellites and rockets for the Canadian Space Agency. I've used these project management frameworks in the water treatment industry, expanding and upgrading wastewater treatment plant facilities. I'm also a member of the organizing committee on the Commissioning Professional Society, where we host an annual event in Houston, Texas, and some of the best and brightest commissioning minds in the world get together and discuss some of the challenges in the industry and how best to elevate the importance of commissioning on projects. It's a great event. You should attend when we hold it next. We don't quite have a date yet, but we're working towards that. Now, I'm not the only one getting results with this approach to commissioning. Through our products and services, I've helped several other people and projects get these same results. For example, Sheldon or Jonald or Kale and many others. After joining our programs, they all tell me that this was an eye-opener. They had no idea what was fully involved in commissioning projects. They tell me that this was the most interesting and applicable course they've taken in years with lots of practical information. This is not theoretical stuff that you'll read in a textbook. They tell me that this is the first commissioning explanation they've found that fully matches with what really happens at site. And that's because it is. It's based on real world experience. This isn't textbook stuff. And you can go to our website. You can read more at commissioningandstartup.com about all the success stories that we've had, that people have had with our programs. Be sure to check that out. Go to www.commissioningandstartup. At the top, you can click on the link that says success stories, and you can see all the people who have joined our programs and all the great things that they have to say about it. So I know that these processes and tools are great stuff. They're helping a lot of people, and they can definitely help you and your projects too. I see this Victor's got a question. And also see the screen. Okay, that's interesting. An AI assistant helping us. Okay, great. We've got an AI assistant. I didn't even know that. Cool. All right. So just to be clear, though, this is not technical commissioning. If you're here looking for how to do an electrical high pot test, or if you're looking for building commissioning the specific HVAC test and balance procedures, this is not ASHRAE. This is not NEBB or any of those simple building commissioning processes. If you're here looking for specific pipe flushing standards for the food processing industry, you're not going to get that here. That's not what this presentation is about. But technical commissioning is not actually what's missing on projects, though, is it? There's a lot of smart people working on projects, and they'll get the testing completed one way or the other. What's missing on projects are the project management aspects that are supposed to go around the technical commissioning. What's missing are the processes and tools to manage commissioning much earlier in projects. Let's look at a simple org chart. There's three main functions on a project, right? You need to get it designed, and then you need to get everything constructed and installed, and then you need to get it tested all together at the end of the project, right? Or if you've got a EPC contract, maybe your design and construction groups are part of the same contract, same thing applies. There's typically someone to manage the design, and they're following design best practices, and they're using project management tools to track their design work. There's always someone to manage construction. There's an entire industry dedicated to construction project management with cost and schedule and quality processes to follow, as well as lots of construction tools that you may be familiar with to manage the construction deliverables. But where are the tools and processes to manage commissioning? On a lot of projects, they don't even exist. There's a gap in the industry. Commissioning processes don't fit within design and construction processes. They're different since they require a systems-based approach to projects. But commissioning is really still in its infancy. Of course, we've been doing commissioning for decades, but it's only recently that commissioning is being recognized as its own discipline and recognized as a primary function to successfully complete projects. With project teams, they're always looking for ways to improve productivity during commissioning. Now, there is a distinction between technical commissioning and commissioning project management. They do require different skill sets, and to be clear, you can't learn technical commissioning in a course. You need hands-on experience. It's just too dangerous. It's like a kid learning to ride a bike. She's not going to learn how to ride a bike by going to a seminar. She needs to get on the bike. She needs to get the bumps and bruises if she wants to figure out how to ride a bike. Technical commissioning is not what this presentation is about anyways. But when it comes to commissioning project management, you can learn this, and you must learn this in advance before trying to lead or manage commissioning. You need to understand the software tools to use and the commissioning process to follow before starting any capital project. It's similar to surgery. Do you want a surgeon in the operating room trying to figure out what to do on the fly? Of course not. I certainly don't. You want the surgeon who has studied the process and knows the exact steps to follow and the proper tools to use, including when something goes wrong. There is just too much time and money at stake on projects to learn commissioning project management on the fly. The technical commissioning guys, they're not going to be able to manage this. It's not their role anyways. They have their own specialized testing to complete. They're the experts that know how to do an electrical high pot test, and that's what they're going to focus on. And by the time they're involved in the project anyways, it's already too late to be proactive or solve any of the issues in advance. For project managers, they especially need to know how to properly manage commissioning. And I would honestly say that finishing projects during commissioning should be a project manager's most fundamental role. Wouldn't you agree? To make sure the project can actually finish on time. But it's not project managers' fault that they don't understand commissioning project management. The software tools and commissioning processes to follow aren't explained in any project management literature that's out there. Completing projects during commissioning is not well understood by a lot of people. So with this gap that exists in the industry and this missing commissioning project management function on a lot of projects, it's no wonder that projects are typically late and over budget. And this is the gap that we help you fill. This presentation is for project managers that need to understand the tools and processes required to finish projects during commissioning, and also for technical commissioning experts that want to move up in projects to understand commissioning project management so that you can get the project roles that you want and complete capital project commissioning much more efficiently. Frank is saying one key issue to be addressed is that there are no international specifications. Is there specialists working on this? Well, that is one thing that we are working on with the Commissioning Professional Society, but you're right, there is no global governing body that's determining the standardization of commissioning across all industries, across all projects. And I agree, it would certainly be a huge benefit to the industry to be able to have that. We're working on it. It's a slow process, and I don't know if we have a timeline to have any of that completed, but I agree it's something that we definitely need to put in place because people join projects even within the same industry and everybody's speaking the different language and following different processes, and it just gets so confusing, right? But this is the gap that we're helping fill here, is by providing this knowledge and information on what those processes are and tools to use to be able to manage commissioning. Because with this gap that exists in the industry, when there are no processes or tools to manage commissioning, projects are just gambling. You have no way to affect the outcome of your project. You have no way to meet your cost and schedule objectives. All you can do is roll the dice and hope for the best at the end. It's a crapshoot. I'm going to show you how to finish your projects during commissioning with much more visibility and much more clarity. And at the end of this presentation, if you'd like some more help, I'll show you how with the products and services that we offer. So if this all sounds interesting to you, then I'm glad you're here. So first, I want to share some statistics with you that are quite concerning. This is Professor Bent Flivberg. He's from the University of Oxford, and he's compiled a database of over 16,000 projects from the last several decades. He's also written a book. It's called How Big Things Get Done. And if you haven't read it, you should. It's definitely a good book. It's very enlightening. Professor Flivberg's research shows that only 8.5% of projects are on time and on budget. That means that 90% of projects, over 90% of projects, are late and over budget. That's terrible. The construction industry definitely has a terrible track record. Now, to be clear, there are certainly lots of challenges contributing to these statistics. There's large workforces for civil works, heavy civil equipment, and coordinating large workforces for sure that are challenging, and we need our construction experts to focus on those aspects. There's always procurement delays for long lead items. If you've got something that's 6 months or more procurement lead time, getting that stuff to site is certainly always challenging. Lots of construction productivity issues if there's huge volumes of concrete to be placed. We need our construction experts looking at those items and solving those problems. And I don't want to discount any of those challenges on projects that exist as well. However, the complexity of completing projects during commissioning is one of the main contributing factors to delays when there are no systems and controls to manage commissioning. When you have limited or no commissioning project management on your projects, you're wasting millions of dollars and months of schedule on your projects. I'm going to show you the software tools and the project management processes required to eliminate the chaos during commissioning and give you visibility and clarity you need to complete projects so that you can do better with these statistics, so you can certainly have more than 1 out of 10 projects ending on time and on budget and improve your project outcomes. So Let me know in the chat. I see there's some good comments already. Is this making sense? Do any of these statistics concern you? What's been your experience on projects? Have your projects being completed on time and on budget, or are they falling on the other side of these statistics where 9 out of 10 projects are late and over budget? Let me know in the chat what some of your commissioning experiences have been. So the first thing a lot of people want to know when I do this presentation is tell me what to do. Just give me the checklists, give me the steps to follow. Just tell me which software to use and I'll go on my way and I'll complete my commissioning. For example, just tell me how to commission a combustion gas turbine, or just tell me the best software to use and I'll follow that. But when I hear these questions, I already know that these projects are in trouble because there's a little bit more to it than that. You're never going to find a single document that shows you the steps for commissioning. You're not going to find that magic piece of software that tells you how to commission your project, because each project is different and you need specific processes and tools that meet your project specific needs. So first, let's address the problems of what not to do before we talk about what to do. We know that projects are having problems. We know this because the data tells us this, showing us that 9 out of 10 projects are late and over budget. Projects are losing time during commissioning and they're missing deadlines. But why is this? Why are projects struggling? We need to address these problems before I teach you what to do. There are 2 common mistakes that are made on projects, and just by fixing these 2 mistakes, you can see huge improvements on your projects. So what are these 2 mistakes? Mistake number 1 is leaving commissioning to the end of your projects. We've been told for many decades that commissioning takes place at the end of projects, right? You need to finish construction and then you test everything at the end, but this is actually not true. This is, of course, what most projects do. They roll the dice at the end, and maybe you've had this experience on projects, but this is what leads to problems on projects all the time, every time. In fact, to be successful, the commissioning process starts right at the beginning of your project during your feed processes, and we need to be implementing our commissioning software during feed to manage our commissioning processes. When commissioning is left to the end, you have no way to be proactive. All the problems are left to the end of your project, and there's no time to recover. The damage is done before on-site commissioning even begins. It's exactly like Stephen Covey says in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. Habit number 2, begin with the end in mind. We must be doing this on our capital projects, having commissioning project management processes right from the start. You must have a clear vision of your project objectives right from the start, which means you must have visibility and clarity on how to complete your project during commissioning and startup, especially when you're working with such large project teams. There's just no way to successfully complete projects unless you have clear objectives at the beginning. It's like that for everything. Projects are no different. Imagine flying a plane without knowing your destination. Well, you'll end up flying in circles and probably land in the exact same spot that you took off from, making zero progress. You must have a clear objective of where you're going to go when you're flying a plane and when you're starting projects. At the highest level, your project objectives are, of course, to deliver high quality systems on time and on budget. The only way to meet these project objectives is to achieve successful commissioning and startup. Therefore, everything you do on projects, all design and all construction activities, they must be with the clear objective to successfully complete commissioning and startup. And this is why it's critical to implement commissioning project management early in your projects so that objectives are clearly defined for everyone to see and understand how their role contributes to successful commissioning and startup, and how their role contributes to a strong finish on projects to deliver high quality systems on time and on budget. All projects that have ever finished on time and on budget, this is what they're doing. They're implementing commissioning project management right at the beginning so they have clear goals and clear objectives on their projects, and to ensure everyone is working towards the same project goal, which is successful commissioning and startup to finish your project on time and on budget. And I'm going to show you how to do this. So Frank has a comment. Speaking of civil works, how do you manage the commissioning during construction? In the chemical industry, lots of pipelines have to be guided through different levels. Sometimes the guides are missing during the construction. this already causes delays. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm going to go through that process in a little bit more detail in how commissioning is involved during feed processes, how commissioning is involved during construction processes. So I think some of the upcoming discussion will answer your question there. Shashi is asking, I worked on a 400 kV integration project in Middle East, scope studies, outages, outage window, phase-wise project approach reviewing, redo the studies. Consultant totally completed in 3 years' time. Sounds like things went well. You must have had a fairly well integrated approach to commissioning project management. So right on. Imagine you need to do pre-commissioning and commissioning of a HVO plant that will be included inside a big hydrocracking plant. Who will be responsible for startup of the new HVO, the commissioning team or the original plant team? The control of this HVO will be an existing console. Okay, so it's a joint effort. The commissioning team is responsible for startup of any of the new facilities, but the operations personnel, the original plant team, they are a key member and a key stakeholder that is one of the participants, part of the commissioning team. So there's lots of people involved in commissioning, and we'll go through that in a little bit later here too. But it's critical to have operations involved in commissioning, especially on a brownfield plant like that, where you're working amongst already in service equipment, because there's lots of close collaboration with operations for the existing plant equipment and starting up the new equipment. Even for lockout tagout interfaces for integrating new equipment to the existing plant systems. But it's also a great opportunity for the original plant team to see the new systems, to be part of the commissioning team and get that hands-on experience, ask the questions of the experts while they're on site, and support that soft transition to bring in the new equipment. So it's a collaborative effort led by the commissioning team, led by the commissioning manager, with the original plant team as one of the key stakeholders involved in that commissioning team. So the next mistake that is typically made on projects is a lot of projects are still using paper and spreadsheets to manage commissioning, where they've got paper sign-offs or they've got their custom spreadsheets to manually track commissioning. And while this used to work 20 years ago, today's projects are far too complex. There's just too many documents and there's too much information. It's impossible to keep track of manually in a spreadsheet. We need real-time data to make informed decisions. We can't wait until the spreadsheet is updated on Friday to get information on what was completed in the last few days. We need access to information now. So even if you used commissioning software in the past and you weren't happy with it, you didn't like it, there are much better options available now that make managing commissioning so much easier. And I'm going to show you which is the best software to use on your projects. I'm not sure I heard you talk about commissioning for digital projects, software IT. So we don't so much talk about commissioning of software and those types of systems. The presentation today is primarily focused on industrial plant processes, so chemical manufacturing, oil and gas, power systems, those types of items. Of course, there's IT networks that are part of that, and that would be one of the systems to commission. But on the global larger scale of the entire project, we're going to look at all of the industrial components to make up a complete industrial plant process facility. So that would be for process systems or for energy systems. If you're still using paper and spreadsheets on your projects, then you're pretty much stuck in a maze. You're just guessing how to get to the end. You have no visibility and no clarity on the efficient path to complete your projects during commissioning. Everyone ends up working on different objectives and heading in different directions and has their own interpretation of how to get to the project. And that's what causes a lot of confusion on projects. It's also super hard to complete a project when everyone is going in different directions and nobody agrees on how to finish the project during commissioning. The fundamental problem when working in large team environments is it's pretty difficult to build trust without clarity on how to finish the project. Project groups spend more time arguing on how to complete commissioning rather than collaboratively working together to solve problems to actually get the job done. Instead, we must be leveraging the power of the new CMS software systems that exists to eliminate the chaos during commissioning and give visibility and clarity on what's required to successfully complete projects during commissioning. I recently heard the saying, clarity is kindness. And when I heard this saying, I thought this is pretty good. And this applies to projects because when you put an end to chaotic commissioning and you give project teams clarity on what success looks like during commissioning, it's pretty amazing what they can do to work together and solve problems to get the job done. CMS software makes it super clear for people on what they need to do to complete projects during commissioning, and I'm going to show you how to do this. When projects make one or more of these two mistakes, when they leave commissioning to the end, or if they're still using paper and spreadsheets on projects to manage commissioning, it's because they lack a project management approach to commissioning. And this is what we refer to as cowboy commissioning. The work is inefficient, you miss your deadlines, everything is unplanned and unorganized, project teams are unclear on how to finish projects during commissioning, and it's the reason your commissioning is such a shit show at the end of your projects. It's easier to avoid these mistakes with commissioning project management tools and processes, and I'm going to show you how to do this so your projects can avoid cowboy commissioning. So lots of good questions. Any more that you want to shoot in the chat before we move on to the next topics? Anything you want to clarify, just let me know here while I grab a drink and we'll carry on. Fernando is asking, CMS software is compatible with Primavera and other softwares? Yeah, a lot of them are. A lot of project teams will still want to use Primavera for managing schedule. The really good CMS software packages have schedule already built into them, and you can actually manage your commissioning timelines and schedules within the software. But there's typically still a Primavera interface required as schedule updates are coming in from various groups on the project to update dates, to update your CMS software. So pretty much all of them have an interface to be able to integrate with other software packages, Primavera being one of the big ones for sure. Okay, so what are some of the symptoms of cowboy commissioning or some of the problems that we're seeing on project? One of the problems you may be experiencing is your transition from construction to commissioning is disorganized and incomplete. Everybody's definition of done seems to mean something different on projects, right? Done to the commissioning guys means something different than done means to the construction guys, than done means to the design team. And there's no real organized process to get to what done actually means to proceed with commissioning. And everything becomes disorganized as there's things that are still missing. Commissioning is delayed due to constant snags, and it might not even be big problems. There's just a whole bunch of small problems, a rolled wire, a missing cable, a missing setting, but all of these little things add up, and it's like a death by 1,000 cuts where you just can't make progress because you're tripped up at everywhere you go and everything you look at. That's probably describing pretty much every project that's out there. Commissioning is squeezed into half the time. Again, this is probably every project that's out there too, right? Is you have twice as amount of commissioning work to complete in half the amount of time. You've got 16-hour days to try to recover. These are all problems that exist on projects that are plaguing that transition from construction to commissioning. And your project team, they really have no clarity on how to finish projects during commissioning because there's no structured process or tools to follow to actually get to the end of your project so that none of the important details are missing. Now, some of the mistakes that are made on projects is your commissioning processes are probably not well defined. And let's face it, most project teams are not super process driven. When you have no process, you're really just making it up as you go, right? And everybody's kind of making up their own path because there's no agreed on path to completion. Instead, we need to get away from the outdated industry norms that have really never worked and implement commissioning project management processes and tools more suitable for today's complex projects. A lot of projects, they have no subsystem-based approach through all stages of projects. So we must be following a subsystems-based approach through our design, through our feed processes, through construction, through our commissioning processes, everything to align identically with our project startup sequence. And we must be following these stages, requiring commissioning project management embedded into all stages of projects to give all project groups clarity on what's required to get to the end and what's required to finish projects during commissioning. So all project groups have visibility on the clear objectives to achieve during commissioning to meet your project cost and schedule objectives, which of course is to deliver high quality systems on time and on budget. That's the ultimate goal on projects. What does FEED stand for? So FEED is front end engineering and design. It's the activities that could be months or years of our engineering experts preparing our designs for our systems, generating the design packages. And it's important that those FEED processes align with construction processes, align with commissioning and startup processes. If you jumble all that up and everybody's doing things in different orders, well, pretty hard to meet your project startup sequence. And there really only is one startup sequence that works on projects. You can't start up your chemical dosing systems without some key fundamental elements like power to do that or chemicals to do that. Everything comes together in a very fixed sequence at the end, and everything leading up to that must align with that. Frank's got a question. Yes, automation systems are always a challenge on projects. And I've got some good case studies coming up that we'll go through that show you some of the lessons learned on how to approach some of our complex control and protection systems so that it works in the end. Automation control systems, protection systems, they always cause problems at the end of the project because everybody leaves them to the end. So I've got some good discussion on that that'll hopefully help you, Frank. Another mistake we see on projects is projects are still being planned from left to right. A lot of projects still do this, is they'll perform a lot of design activities, then figure out what's required for construction, then figure out what's required for commissioning and startup to meet your project and service date. Well, you'll never meet your project and service date doing that. The only way to plan your project is from right to left, which means here's your project and service date. What do you need to meet that? You need to successfully commission and start up your project. What do you need for successful commissioning and startup? You need this, 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 and this from construction and design groups. Okay, what do you need from to perform construction successfully? You need this, 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 and this from design groups. The only way to plan your projects to meet your project objectives is to plan from right to left. And commissioning software allows you to do that so that you can start with the end in mind and start with your project in service date and work backwards from there, giving everybody working on projects clarity and visibility they need to achieve that end goal of projects, right? How long is your program after this meeting? I'll cover all those good details at the end for sure. So definitely stick around and I'll tell you all about it. Another mistake is there's only a handful of people that understand what's required for commissioning. And this is common. Commissioning is complex and it's not reasonable to expect everyone to be a commissioning expert. However, it's also not helpful when only a few commissioning experts on your projects understand what's required for commissioning. The technical experts show up on the site later in the project, and what are they? They're usually pretty upset because things aren't ready, right? They're missing things and they're not able to proceed with their job. Well, everyone needs clear instruction on what is required for successful commissioning, even if they don't understand commissioning. And we don't necessarily need everyone to understand the details of commissioning. Not everybody's going to get to that level of details on commissioning, but we at least need them to understand how their role contributes to successful commissioning and startup. And we need to be providing them that visibility so they know how to contribute to the successful end of the project. So without some comprehensive method to track all the details required for commissioning, project groups don't have that clarity. Having details buried in an outdated spreadsheet is not helpful at all, right? Nobody has access to that, or it's outdated, or it needs to be updated. That's not giving the teams the visibility they need to understand how to complete the projects. We need to be using software as a communication tool to help everyone understand what is required for commissioning so that we can give all earlier groups on projects the clarity and visibility they need to complete projects during commissioning. And then the last mistake we see is that a lot of projects are using contracts to get the work started, but they're not using them as a tool to actually finish the projects. When you look at contracts on projects, they're usually pretty light on commissioning details. Maybe they have the technical commissioning requirements, but they're likely missing all of the commercial and project management aspects of commissioning. And this is what leads to a lot of confusion at the end of projects. When there are no clear objectives on how the project will be finished during commissioning, you end up spending more time stuck in meetings, arguing about how to finish the project during commissioning rather than following the agreed to processes and using the agreed to software that was identified in contracts that should have already been identified for commissioning project management. So is this making sense so far? Does this sound like your projects? Does you have any experiences on some of the problems or mistakes that you've encountered on projects? So Mohammed's got a question. To My question is, what the critical path to control the mistakes already done on project installation to save time and reduce the commissioning costs? Absolutely. So when you're implementing commissioning project management much earlier in projects, you're mitigating those risks, because really what this is all about is risk mitigation, right? You can avoid that risk mitigation and you can push all those issues to be discovered at the end of your project, but you're guaranteed you're going to find issues. None of this is going to work perfect. There will be issues. You will find them. And if you want to find them at the end of your project, well, that's pretty poor risk mitigation. Of course, your project's going to be late and over budget. So when you implement proper commissioning project management processes, we're bringing a lot of that forward and more earlier in projects to mitigate those risks, to identify those potential risk items, to reduce the amount of risk and give our commissioning at the end of projects a much higher chance of success. So when you say that mistakes have already been done during project installation, well, that's because we didn't have some of these processes implemented earlier to identify those mistakes. If we're just going to make those mistakes and we're going to let them fall through the cracks and find later in the project, well, then there probably isn't much you can do to recover, because you're going to find those mistakes one way or the other, and they are going to cause delays, and they're going to be expensive delays because your project burn rate is significantly more at the end of your project, where each day of commissioning is extremely valuable. So we need to be implementing these commissioning project management processes much earlier in projects so that we can mitigate those risks and save significant time and money on projects. All right, let's quickly run through the process required for commissioning. There's 3 frameworks that are required for commissioning project management. And this might answer some of the questions I see in the chat too, is there's the planning frameworks that are required for commissioning. There's the construction completion frameworks that are required for commissioning project management. And there's also the on-site commissioning and startup frameworks that are part of our approach, our project management approach to commissioning here too. These make up the integrated commissioning process. And when you establish your integrated commissioning processes earlier in your projects, all project groups have clarity and visibility on how to complete projects, which of course needs to be everyone's main objectives, even years in advance. This reduces delays during commissioning, minimizes the number of snags during commissioning, and you eliminate the chaos to avoid Cowboy commissioning, saving your projects millions of dollars in months of schedule, all with the goal so that we can deliver high quality systems for decades of reliable operation. However, from disorganized commissioning, I learned a lot. Oh, yes, you certainly will learn a lot through disorganized commissioning, but it's a painful way to learn some of those lessons. There are much easier, much smoother ways to learn some of these lessons, which is what we've all got, which is what I'm presenting here today. When you go through that disorganized commissioning, it sure burns a lot of people out, and a lot of good people will start leaving projects. We need to be implementing better systems so that we can let the good people, the experts that are working on projects, do their best work rather than bogging them down with headaches and annoyances and disorganized commissioning that just burn out so many good people on projects. Do we have to involve also operations and readiness people in commissioning execution? 100%, absolutely. And we do have operational readiness components that are in our training to help with that transition, to help with that soft transition from the project environment to the operating world, because it's important to transition from the project world to operations as smoothly as possible. At what stage of construction should pre-commissioning begin? I'm going to go through that here shortly in what that process looks like, because the construction team is responsible for some of the pre-commissioning activities, and then the commissioning team or pre-commissioning team is responsible for some of their pre-commissioning activities. And it depends on the system, if it's a mechanical system or an electrical system, but I'll go through that here shortly. So when you're missing these integrated commissioning processes, it may seem like you're making progress on your projects until, of course, on-site testing starts and then nothing works. Things are missing. There's constant delays. You're scrambling at the end to get things finished. You're faced with costly delays on your projects and you're panicking to try to keep your head above water. I'm sure you've got executives that are breathing down your neck and demanding you to finish on probably some arbitrary completion date that they've picked. You end up with cowboy commissioning, which is what we want to avoid. Without integrating commissioning processes on projects, well, what do most project teams do? They dump everything on the commissioning guys at the end to sort it out, right? The commissioning guys are treated like the wizards and they'll make everything better. They work 16-hour days or 7 days a week to try and recover. And I guess the plan is just to have fingers crossed, hoping the project will end. But come on, hope is not a plan. The blame game starts, finger pointing on what went wrong, claims start to pile up, and often the plan is just to fight it out in court. And this is hardly a good approach to projects, but this is what a lot of projects do. There is a better way, and that's by implementing integrated commissioning processes much earlier in your projects, establishing the defined processes to follow and the specific tools to use so that there are minimal surprises, easy to follow processes right from the beginning of projects that everyone understands. You have the right project management controls in place to make informed decisions. Commissioning goes much smoother with no delays or snags. Operations should be involved right from the beginning. Absolutely, 100% agree. During our feed processes, and we'll talk about that as well, because there's no point in designing things if operations can't use it at the end. So you need that feedback loop and those lessons learned to incorporate those things. We get operations in at the start of construction, if possible. They see the plant grows. Absolutely. 100% great approach, Frank. I like it. Okay, so these are the details of the integrated commissioning process. But first, why is it called integrated commissioning process? Well, that's because commissioning project management must be integrated into all stages of projects during procurement processes. When we're preparing contracts and awarding groups of work, we need to have commissioning involvement. During design processes, commissioning needs to be involved. During construction processes, there's commissioning inputs for sure. And during our construction completion processes is when we most need commissioning input to make sure that the commissioning teams are getting what they need for commissioning. There is one commissioning process to follow through all stages of projects. There's one commissioning team and one commissioning process, regardless of which group you're part of. All groups working on projects have a role in commissioning, and it's the only way so this all comes together at the end of your project. So let's go through each commissioning project management framework here. So the first one we talked about was planning, and there are 10 project management frameworks that are required as part of our planning phases. The first one is contracts. The contracts obviously define the rules of the game. So if you've got the wrong rules or bad rules at the end of the game, hard to play the game and actually win the game at the end. So commissioning needs to be having input into preparing engineering design contracts, preparing construction contracts. There's key milestones that need to be defined and key processes that need to be defined. Everything we've talked about here for our commissioning project management processes needs to be defined upfront in contracts so that everyone has a clear understanding of how the project is going to be finished, even years in advance. And you might say, well, how do you know that years in advance? When it comes to commissioning project management, you absolutely do. And those details need to be included in contracts to show people how projects are going to be finished. Even for procurement contracts, when we're buying equipment, it needs to be specified properly how equipment is going to be tested in the factory. Especially when it comes to more complex systems for control and protection systems. What are the testing requirements in the factory so that aligns with testing requirements on site? And that's probably answering your question, Taryn. How important are SAT and FAT to mitigating delays in commissioning? They are critical to mitigating delays in commissioning. Is if we've properly defined FAT requirements in our contracts and what's tested off-site, then that needs to align with what's tested on site during SAT and comparison of those results to make sure that there's no damage during shipping or installation. Those need to align. On a lot of projects. We see that they don't. It's just left up to the manufacturer to test what they want to test in FAT. Well, then if you're testing something different or skipping things or doing things differently and FAT and SAT aren't lining up, well, you're already running into problems even before you've really started. So critically important. Next planning framework is our feed processes. So you've probably been involved in projects and gathered lessons learned. But often those lessons learned quickly get filed away and forgotten about. Well, your feed processes are the process to incorporate those lessons learned. We need to have commissioning input during our feed processes at preliminary design reviews, at detailed design reviews. We need to have operations input during our feed processes to be reviewing package. And a lot of people have come along to the concept of having constructability reviews, but there's also commissionability and operability reviews that need to be incorporated in our feed processes. That's the only way to incorporate some of the groups at the end of projects feedback back to the beginning of projects to link and ensure that design activities, even years in advance, align with what's actually required to start the project up at the end. For some systems are going to require even more detailed design review, like control and protection systems or process control narratives. Those need to be reviewed often quite frequently to make sure that commissioning input and operations input are into those processes. So we can actually commission the system and operate the systems at the end of the project rather than getting a bunch of HMI screens or processes that aren't useful to us at the end of the project. So the third aspect is, we briefly talked about it, factory acceptance testing, but maybe even more importantly, integrated factory acceptance testing. Commissioning needs to be involved in here. We'd be very familiar with a lot of common testing. We've been doing FAT for decades. If some of the more simple equipment like a pump, you need to run it for a few hours, test 3 points on the pump curve in the factory. Those are pretty straightforward. But when we get to the more complex systems of control and protection systems, we need to be ensuring that both the hardware and the software are tested and integrated in the factory to confirm that these systems work. The hardware cubicle is useless without the software. When you're programming all your PLCs, that's what's actually making you do something useful. And both of those, hardware and software, need to be tested in the factory to make sure systems are actually going to function when they get to site. And I've got a good case study coming up. I'll go through that, different approaches to IFAT here shortly. We'll cover that a little bit more. So the next planning framework is our project systematization. This is one of the main reasons to have commissioning involved earlier in the project as well, is we need to be taking a subsystems based approach through all stages of the project. And when we're getting through our feed processes and we have our tag list generated, that's the time to be identifying those tags into the various subsystems to ensure that design activities, construction activities, and commissioning activities align with how we've systematized the project for our project startup. This is critical to have our project systematized during our feed processes. Otherwise, everybody's working to a different plan and not taking that subsystems-based approach, and things are missing at the end of the project. So the next planning framework is our gated commissioning workflows. There's a definite process to follow through the various gates of commissioning, through construction completions, pre-commissioning, commissioning, startup, trial operation, and the handover to the owner. So what are the commissioning workflows we're going to be following? What are the forms and certificates we're going to be using? And how is this all tracked in our commissioning software? So that's the next planning element in our commissioning frameworks. Here is our CMS software. What CMS software are we going to be using? How are groups on the project expected to be interfacing with the software systems? What are the expectations for inputting data, receiving data, and managing workflows within the system? Commissioning software, maybe not the specific software vendor that's going to be used, but all of this needs to be outlined in contracts that commissioning software will be used. This is the expectation of how it will be used. This is what it defines. This is the completion milestones that are going to be defined in there. And this is how the goalposts are going to be achieved through our gated commissioning workflows, all defined in software. So then as we get further through some of our processes here for planning commissioning, we're going to be able to put together our commissioning sequence and our commissioning schedule. This is really finally pulling the comprehensive plan of everything that's required for design, everything that's required for commissioning in order to construction as well, everything that's required to meet our project startup sequence. Once we form our commissioning sequence and our commissioning schedule, this is all loaded into our commissioning software to give everybody that visibility and clarity on how to finish projects. Next planning element is our forms and certificates. So often when you think about forms and certificates, you might think of a paper form or certificate. Well, we don't do that anymore. Everything is a form or certificate within our commissioning software, and identified who is the authority that signs off on that particular form or that particular certificate through our gated commissioning workflows to identify that we've achieved the various milestones and can proceed with the next stages of testing. Two more planning elements here, checklists and procedures. We'd be very familiar with these. We've been preparing checklists and commissioning procedures for a long time, but now commissioning software takes that to a new level. As a lot of the software, if you get the right system, has all the checklists built into them of thousands of different types of checklists, and they're going to be pretty close to what you need because a pump is a pump and there's only so many things you can check on a pump, right? So when you get that checklist or procedure from the software, you maybe add a parameter, delete a couple parameters to make it specific to your project. Done. Checklist is already in software and loaded and ready to go. So the important thing to know is that there's no time during on-site testing to be preparing and planning checklists and procedures. All of our checklists and procedures need to be ready to go, all completed and loaded into the software before on-site commissioning starts so that we can focus strictly on execution during on-site commissioning. And the last item, not because it's the least important, but we need to make sure that our safety protocols are in place as part of our planning efforts. So what are the PSSR processes that we're going to be using? What is our emergency response plans? How are we working closely with our HSC groups to make sure that all of this work is completed safely? Because the commissioning team is relied upon heavily to make sure that all of this work is completed safely. As the equipment experts on projects, the commissioning team, who's the technical commissioning experts that have done this before, need to be ensuring that all of our startups are taking place safely so that everyone can celebrate the success of the project at the end. Okay, moving on to the next section, there's two frameworks required for construction completions, and you may be familiar with a punch list walk down, but this is the formalization of that process within our software systems and categorization of any punch items in software as A punch, B punch, C punch, and how they're tracked in software. So formalizing that process and bringing it into software so everybody has visibility on what's outstanding, what needs to be completed, and maybe most importantly, when it needs to be completed so that it doesn't hold up the completion of the project. And then the second framework for construction completions is our subsystem static completions. I mentioned earlier that everybody's definition of done always seems to mean something different. Well, when this is properly defined in software for each specific subsystem, everything that's required for every tag, every physical piece of equipment, as well as all documentation, red line drawings, protection coordination studies, anything that's required is explicitly defined and itemized in your commissioning software so that everyone has the clear, crystal clear picture of what each static completion is and how to achieve that goalpost so that nothing gets missed. This is critical to make that transition from construction to commissioning much more smooth because everybody has the visibility on what's required to do that. Okay, then the last portion here is our on-site commissioning and startup, and there's 6 project management frameworks that are required there. So these are some of the stages of commissioning that you would be somewhat familiar with is our pre-commissioning, commissioning, and startup. Pre-commissioning, of course, being our equipment level tests, just testing the pump on its own. Commissioning being more so testing things as a group of equipment where we're expecting that group of equipment to function as a subsystem or system. As we're going through those individual equipment tests and system tests, moving towards our startup, introducing process fluids or first energizations for the first time for startup, then moving through performance verification to fine-tune the systems, trial operation to make sure everything's correct one final time before we move to handover of the systems. So all of these frameworks are for on-site commissioning and startup are managed and tracked within our commissioning software to manage our commissioning workflow. Ooh, so that's quite a bit to go through there, and I went through it fairly quickly. But let's just take a moment here and clarify anything before we move forward. Let me know in the chat if there's any questions that you want to clarify in what I went through there fairly quickly. So Frank is asking, DCS and SIS should be integrated during FAT. Absolutely. Yep. Anytime I've seen a project try and do their software integration later in the project during on-site testing for the first time, I've never seen that go well. We need to be integrating hardware and software in the factory to make sure that these systems work. I've seen when they're doing that software integration on site, I've seen equipment damaged, millions of dollars of damage. An oil pump was programmed incorrectly and it shut off during a high-speed piece of equipment slowing down. Well, the oil pump stopped, wiped the bearing, destroyed the unit. Millions of dollars in damage, months of delay, all because the software wasn't controlling that oil pump correctly. It never saves any time to try and do that integration on site for the first time. You always run into problems. How can one start your program? Just getting to that very shortly here. There's a few more things I want to cover before that, but I will tell you how to do that. If you do want to jump ahead and start the program, if you can't stay for the whole presentation here, although I encourage you to, if you do want to explore that a bit further, you can go to learncsu.com. There's a spot right there. You can book a meeting with me. We'll chat about it and we can get you started here quickly. But I'll go through that in a little bit more detail about how that works. What's the duration of your program? It depends. It's flexible. People can go through it as fast or as slow as they want, because it's all online based. We found that people need that flexibility working on projects because projects are busy. So you have that flexibility to work around your busy schedule. If you want to go through the course quickly, you could probably complete it in a couple of weeks. I find that most people take 5 to 6 weeks to complete it part-time, maybe working on it 4 or 5 hours each week. Frank, I've started to write a guide on operational readiness for startup. I noticed a lot of issues are forgotten. Example, gas bottle, small. Absolutely, yeah. We've got some good guidance on operational readiness as well, kind of what that checklist is, what are the items that need to be included, and how the commissioning team supports that operational readiness efforts. And that's built into our programs here as well. So I did want to quickly touch on some of the aspects here of software that's required for commissioning project management. There are commissioning is just too complex and you need a system to be able to manage all the details. And the software is the tools that you use to implement your integrated commissioning processes, as well as guide your project team to finish. You can't use Excel to manage commissioning. That's not managed commissioning. That's just a glorified task list. CMS software takes your project data and allows you to actually manage commissioning rather than just a list with a bunch of shit to do that you probably are never going to do or it's not going to get completed on time. Anyways, when commissioning software is used properly on projects, all groups working on projects have the visibility and clarity they need to finish projects during commissioning and can eliminate the chaos and avoid cowboy commissioning, saving your projects millions of dollars and several months of schedules because you're able to complete projects much more efficiently and you're able to deliver high quality systems for decades of reliable operation. PSSR is not sufficient before starting up. It is only a part of the safety issues. Yep, absolutely. Yep, PSR is one of the processes, but there's also test readiness reviews, construction completions, PSSR safety review meetings. It's a process. It's not just a simple checklist. There's several steps to go through to get everybody's input on the project, all stakeholders that need to be involved to make sure that nothing is missed and that systems are properly started up safely. Ali's asking, please ask all attendees to send their questions to the chat box to everyone. We cannot see all the questions. I think they're all being sent to everybody. I can see they're being sent to all, but maybe that's a good reminder. Is there a certification exam right at the end of the program, and how do you get to put what we have learned into practice? Another good question, and I'm going to explain all that as well coming up here soon. Well, these are all good questions. I like your questions. Keep them coming. There is an exam at the end, but we also have the software components built into the program as well. So everything you learn in the process, we then have actual software systems that you're able to log into. There's a very guided workbook to put all of this together. Then you get the practical application of actually building these processes in software with an example project or maybe a past project you worked on to see it in practice, to see it actually used and managed within software, because that's the key aspect is the practical implementation of actually doing this in software to manage a project. So we've got that built in there as well. However, if you choose not to use software, then, or if you're still using paper and spreadsheets, you have no clear path to finish your project. At each of the decision points on projects, and there's many of them, some will go left, some will go right, and everyone is going in different directions on your project because you don't have that clear definition of how to get to the end of your project. There's no visibility, there's no clarity on which way to go, which is why a lot of people have problems at the end of projects, because most people on projects don't understand commissioning and they don't have that definition of how to get to the end. Your projects quickly end up months late and millions of dollars over budget, just like 9 out of 10 of them do. Without commissioning software on projects, what do projects do? Well, a lot of projects I see have come up with their all singing and all dancing Excel macro that they think solves all the world. But come on, this is the age of artificial intelligence. Do you really think an Excel macro is the best way to manage your projects? You're not going to work on any projects if you mention spreadsheet tracking in an interview or include spreadsheet tracking in your project proposals. You're not going to get people to work on your projects if you continue with the spreadsheet chaos. When you stack the challenge of project management on top of the already complex challenge of technical commissioning, the challenges compound to make this a very difficult problem to solve, which is why you need the very best software tools to cut through the chaos and give you the visibility and clarity you need to get the job done and to get the qualified individuals that you need and that you want to work on your projects. So our program simplifies that. It shows you the processes and shows you the tools so that you can actually manage commissioning properly. There's actually over 20 different commissioning software vendors that are on the market, but there's only a few that have actually solved the problem of commissioning project management. We've reviewed each of these and we know which is the best option for you to use on your various types of projects. We use the best software for each industry. If you need software for power systems, we've identified the best one. For oil and gas, there's a couple good options there. If you're building data centers, there's a preferred software to use when you're putting together data centers. For mining and chemical manufacturing, this is certainly big these days for EV battery manufacturing. There's systems to use for that, for pharmaceutical, for semiconductor, for water treatment facilities. We've got access to all the best software options and can show you the best ones to use. Now, the industries that I mentioned there, are there any others that I didn't mention that you want to know about? Let me know in the chat if I missed any, and I'll answer your question. Any experience in using cell phones in the plant when chemicals are taken in? Yes, that is an issue for sure. For chemicals, for oil and gas projects where we need intrinsically safe devices. So there's two options is some projects will choose to get intrinsically safe devices that can be used on site. But in a lot of cases, you still do need a blended system to be able to use digital systems, but still have options to use paper in areas that are intrinsically safe, but you don't have intrinsically safe devices. So if you get the right software systems, you can still default back to paper records in the field and then bring that paper back to your workstation at the end of your shift to then load into the software. So you want to make sure that you do get the right software systems in place for those cases where chemicals are taken in and you do need an intrinsically safe process to do that. So I just want to be clear, though, that we don't make software. There's lots of good software systems out there. So when we looked out there, we didn't want to go create another commissioning software because it's it's easy to write software, but it's actually very hard to make good software. So instead of creating our own software, we've partnered with the best in class software that's out there, that's already developed and already works great in each industry, so that we can give you the best commissioning project management solution for your projects and for your project specific needs. So if you would like to download a copy of this list of all the software vendors that I have here on the screen, you can do that as well at learncsu.com. When you go to learncsu.com, there's a link at the bottom. You can click and access that spreadsheet. And at the end of this presentation, I'll also show you how you can get access to the #1 rated commissioning software for your industry. So what is the best certificate we can get in commissioning field? Kadar is asking. So we briefly talked about this earlier, but maybe you weren't quite on the call. There is no governing body that issues a certificate for industrial plant process commissioning. If you're doing building commissioning, HVAC, test and balance, some of the more simple systems on, say, a high-rise building, you can go get a building commissioning certification, but those don't apply to industrial plant process commissioning. I've never seen anybody show up on a job with, say, a CPXA or some of the other NEBB or ASHRAE certifications. Those will cover HVAC, but they won't cover any process systems or any energy commissioning systems. So the best place you can get the information you need to be able to commission energy systems, process plant systems is here on this webinar, and I'll show you how to do that. Am I crazy, but wasn't this presentation 1 hour? Typically is, but we've had lots of good questions, so I am running a little bit behind. I do apologize. If you do have to leave, I understand things are busy. You'll get a copy of the replay at the end of this presentation, but I will continue here very shortly. Okay, so if I did tell you which software to use, it's going to feel like sitting down in the cockpit of a 737. Commissioning is complex. We know that, right? Which means that the software is naturally going to be complex as well. When your commissioning is not well defined, it falls apart pretty quickly, and your project team won't want to use it for sure. They'll quickly go back to their paper and spreadsheets. The term garbage in, garbage out definitely applies to commissioning software. However, commissioning project management is not fundamentally about software. The thing about these software tools is if you have great commissioning processes, then you'll love them. But if you don't have great processes, you'll hate these software systems. And most projects are not super process driven. We often hear people complaining about their commissioning software and they're looking for a better one, when in reality, if they started with the right software and the right processes from the beginning, they would be much happier with your commissioning process, commissioning tools. So before defining your commissioning processes in software, you first need a commissioning process worth repeating, and then load this into the right software for your industry. Because we certainly don't want to take a bad commissioning process and digitize it. We help project teams complete this transition to best in class processes and tools so they can double their commissioning productivity and complete projects much more efficiently. I do have a quick note here on artificial intelligence. I don't want to go into this too much because I know we're past time here and that's not really what this presentation is about, but AI is coming quicker than you might think. Do I think that the Tesla Optimus robot is going to take all of our jobs and replace on-site commissioning? Maybe someday, but not likely anytime soon. But we do know that the software tools to analyze the data will continue to improve and become much more powerful. And commissioning project management is actually a perfect use case for AI to help us optimize our work. The dream is that AI can help us streamline our commissioning project management. Well, the software tools aren't quite there yet, but imagine a scenario where we have, say, 20 electrical inspections to complete. We tell the AI that we need these items inspected, and it analyzes to determine that Bill can complete his inspections in 4 hours, and he's available right now to do that. Mark, he's a bit more efficient. He can complete his inspections in 2 hours, but he's not available until 2 days from now. So the AI tells you this from analyzing all the data of how people have been completing their inspections, and asks you, is this okay to assign the work to Mark in 2 days from now? You look at what's best and you assign the work based on the most optimized way to get it done. Now, this is pretty powerful stuff to analyze the data and help you make better decisions on project. Now, there's not a good system that can do this today, but it's not that far away. Some of the software systems that we they already have portions of artificial intelligence already built into them. So you can see that the tools are going to get much better and advanced over the next couple of years. And the project teams that are going to benefit from AI the most are the ones that have data systems already in place. They're the ones already using software to manage their projects and have data that AI can access and manage. They'll be way ahead of others on projects if they've already got systems and processes in place to manage this data. So we know that the AI systems are coming. AI is not going to be able to create your commissioning processes, but it is going to be able to analyze your data and help you make better project decisions to get the work done more efficiently. So start building your project data systems now so that you have systems in place and ready for when the tools get better and can help with AI. So, okay, that's all I want to mention about AI, because that's not what this presentation is really about. But I just wanted to prepare you for what's coming and to understand that we need to be using commissioning software now. So as the software evolves, we can take advantage of these AI systems that are coming. Okay, so we've talked about the two most common mistakes on projects: leaving commissioning to the end of projects and still using paper and spreadsheets on projects. And these are why projects are struggling with commissioning. And if you fix just these two things, you've already made huge improvements on your projects. How can we replay this presentation later on? Because I want to share it with other colleagues for sure. Absolutely, yep. Once we're done here, you saw that it was being recorded. The recording takes a little bit to process with Zoom, but once that's done, I'll get you the link to that recording. You can watch it, you can share it with others, and the more people that understand commissioning, the better our projects will be. So absolutely share it. So I promised a case study to go through here. These are two power projects that took place at the same time in Canada. Now, these are big projects, but these same lessons learned apply to big projects, small projects. If it's a $5 billion project or a $5 million project, the same lessons learned apply. So the first project here is Bipole 3. It's a 2,300 megawatt HVDC link that we completed in central Canada. I was the commissioning manager for that project, and we completed that project between 2015 and 2018. At roughly the same time, on the eastern coast of Canada, the Labrador Island Link was being built. So that was a bit smaller HVDC link, 900 megawatt HVDC link, as well as Muskrat Falls generating station and a few other components there. That project took place between 2012 and 2023. Now, there were lots of things wrong with the Muskrat Falls and the Labrador Island Link project, and it actually resulted in a public inquiry in 2020. You can read all about the public inquiry at muskratfallsinquiry.ca. But there's one thing that I wanted to highlight is the approach to integrated factory acceptance testing between these two projects and the proactive software development and testing that took place in the factory rather than leaving commissioning to the end of the project. So a couple of years ago now, I guess, now that we're in 2024, this was a headline in the CBC News article in March 2022. As software struggles persist, consultants say that Muskrat Falls completion is impossible to predict. So those are certainly not very good media headlines if the media is latched onto problems with the project and is broadcasting those types of things. The problems they were encountering were related to software. June of 2022, software troubles are still cropping up and are being blamed for $260 million Muskrat Falls cost increase. Power rate stable for now. So they're still having software problems that late in the project in June of 2022. And then March of 2023, last year, the headline is that the Newfoundland Hydro president is optimistic about Muskrat Falls despite discovery of new problems. So the problems they were still having was the ability to complete full megawatt transfers. They were doing testing at half capacity, but couldn't get the software to reliably and predictably complete the full 900 megawatt transfer. So even that late in the project, they're still having software problems based on the CBC headlines there. So that can only tell us that perhaps they did testing in the factory of the hardware cubicles, but they certainly didn't do any software testing because if they had done that integrated factory testing of the hardware and the software, they certainly wouldn't be seeing software issues that late in the project. Those software issues wouldn't have existed in March of 2023 had they done integrated factory acceptance testing earlier in the project. Now, contrast that to the approach we took on Biopole 3 is we had 6 months of dedicated integrated factory acceptance testing. There was 30 cubicles in the northern transmission site and 30 in the southern transmission site. And we had all 60 cubicles wired and connected in a factory in Germany in a simulated environment to be able to simulate the entire 2,300 megawatt transfers. And we spent that entire 6 months performing all normal operating scenarios, all fault operating scenarios to make sure that those cubicles functioned, both the hardware and the software, before they were delivered to site. So this was all done 18 months before our project in service date. And because of this proactive offsite testing, we were able to meet our project in service date of July 1st, 2018, and achieve our cost and schedule objectives on the project. So that's one of the major lessons learned I took away while working on that project. And in contrasting to HVDC link on the eastern coast of Canada, is that integrated factory acceptance testing is essential to test both the hardware and the software in the factory to make sure that this stuff works before it arrives at site. We cannot leave software integration to the end of the project because it always leads to problems all the time, every time. All right, so we've covered a lot of good information today, and we've talked about the commissioning processes to follow and the software tools that are required to manage the process. So let me know in the chat if you're ready to go implement this on your projects and you have all the tools that are required that we've discussed on for your projects here today. To correct the two common mistakes on projects, we've discussed how the commissioning process can be simplified into a three-part project management process, being the commissioning frameworks to plan your project, the construction completion frameworks to make the transition from construction to commissioning much more smooth, as well as the frameworks that are required for on-site commissioning and startup of your processes. And we've also discussed the CMS software tools to use so you can double your commissioning productivity. Does all of this sound doable? The processes and the tools, can you go implement these on your projects on next week, or start working towards getting these processes and tools set up on your projects? And if you are ready, what's your first step? Will you define your processes? Will you select your software? What's the first thing you're going to do next week to start getting all this set up on your projects? What I've given you today are the commissioning project management tools and processes that successful project teams use to complete projects during commissioning and meet their project deadlines. So what I've given you are the processes if you want to avoid making costly mistakes on your projects, you want to avoid Cowboy commissioning and the chaos at the end of projects. You want to avoid selecting the wrong commissioning software, and you also want to avoid consequences of a failed project. Nobody wants a project like Muskrat Falls on their resume. It's certainly not very good when you're looking for your next project after you're done that one. Of course, we all want to avoid these, and I'm sure you want visibility and clarity to complete your project commissioning. You want to double your commissioning productivity. You want to skip the 10-year learning curve that I had to go through to figure all this stuff out. And you want to work on the biggest and best projects in the world. So I guess you really have two choices. Choice number one is you can spend the next decade figuring this stuff out on your own. And this is totally a legitimate way to go. This is what I did. I spent the last 10 years working on several projects trying to figure all this stuff out. You can continue with Cowboy commissioning on your projects. You may miss out on project opportunities without having these skills figured out and how to plan and execute your projects. And maybe you'll get stuck with the wrong commissioning software. But there's also option number two is you can get a project management approach to commissioning right now. You can get the best in class commissioning project management software, tools, and processes, and you can skip the 10-year learning curve that I had to go to. you can get the visibility and clarity to complete projects during commissioning. So I think option number 2 sounds like a much better approach. And if you agree, then we've got a few different ways that we can help you and your projects get all this stuff figured out. And I'll break them down for you in just a second. But after working with so many people and so many projects, we know the major problems and mistakes on projects that are causing problems with commissioning. And what I want you to do is schedule a meeting with me so we can discuss a bit further. During the meeting, I'll help you identify what are the biggest mistakes and problems that are actually going on in your projects and what we need to do to get them fixed, whether it's on the process side or whether it's on the software tool side, or if everything we've gone through today is new to you and you're new to commissioning project management, I can show you what's required to get these skills figured out fast for you on your projects. We could also have a conversation on that same call about whether or not I'm someone that can help you understand the tools and processes required for commissioning project management and how quickly I can get you up to speed on how this all works. So I ask you, please go to learncsu.com and schedule a meeting. You can pick a time. You can see my calendar there and pick a time and a date that works for you. And we can see if I'm someone that can help you out. So here's how we help people and projects with commissioning project management. We offer 3 levels of support. The first level of support is our commissioning process training. This gives you the complete integrated completions methodology, the entire commissioning process that we've discussed today that you can apply on your projects. It gives you an overview of the typical mechanical pre-commissioning and commissioning activities, electrical pre-commissioning and commissioning, and automation pre-commissioning and commissioning activities you will encounter. So if you're more familiar with one discipline than the other, you get a flavor of all the different activities that will take place on projects. You get access to our checklists, our procedure forms, and certificates library. This is super helpful where you can just go in and get your commissioning kickoff meeting template, send that out to your meeting group, and on to the next task. You get access to our private members LinkedIn group. It's sometimes helpful to see others that are going through the program or find someone else that's working on a similar project to yours on the other side of the world and bounce some ideas off them. Super helpful as well. When you complete the course, we're accredited by EIC, so that allows us to issue an accredited certificate with the associated CEU and PDH training hours that are there. You also get access to our commissioning jobs network. And this is super helpful because when you complete the course and you post your certificate here, you can find your next commissioning role by collaborating with other commissioning specialists and commissioning employers and commissioning recruiters that are looking for people that can fill these roles. One of the biggest challenges on projects is finding people, the right experienced people and the right people with the knowledge and expertise to perform these projects. And I often hear lots of people saying that's their number one problem is finding people to work on projects. Well, that's why we created our commissioning jobs network, is to help bridge that gap between employers and recruiters and people with commissioning knowledge to fill the roles on projects that are needed to get projects done. So this commissioning process option, our first option here, gives you everything you need to understand the commissioning processes to follow. In our commissioning process and tools training, you get everything in our commissioning process training, plus you also get access to our CMS software tool training that shows you how to actually use the software tools. This is where you get hands-on experience working with the leading software tools that are required to manage commissioning, to see how they work and also learn how to use and apply them to your projects. This option gives you the best of both worlds to understand both the processes and the tools required to manage commissioning. We also offer implementation guidance. So with this option, you and your project team get access to our process and tools training, plus you also get guided support by me and my team to implement these processes and tools within your project delivery structure. We work directly with you and your project team, and we walk you through our 3-step process to implement this on your project, where we set up your systems required for commissioning, to map out your project roles and workflows that are required for your specific projects and your specific industry. We configure all your commissioning processes within CMS software that is the best one for you and your projects. And we train your entire team how to use the system and how to keep it up to date. So that way you get one-on-one guidance to get your project set up fast and ensure that you're not making any mistakes to get best-in-class tools and processes for your commissioning project management set up on your projects quickly. This is the option that gives you the best chance of success to lead your organization through this process improvement process to double your commissioning productivity. All of these options allow you to cut the learning curve down so you don't have to take years to get this stuff figured out. You can take weeks to get these systems and processes in place. It gives you everything you need for commissioning project management in one easy to understand format. It helps you find your next project commissioning role by getting access to our commissioning jobs network so you can focus on the success of your projects. If you want all of this now, then our Commissioning Academy program is your best option. Now, remember at the beginning of this presentation, I promised you something special if you stayed to the end. Well, since you've attended this webinar live, and only because you've attended this webinar live, you can also get trial access to the #1 rated commissioning software when you join one of our programs. All you have to do is schedule a meeting by the end of the day today, and when you enroll at a later date, you'll get trial access to the #1 rated commissioning software. We've done all the research, talked to all the software vendors and asked all the questions, attended the software demos of each one. We know which is the best software for you and your industry and determined which software has the features you actually need for commissioning. So you don't have to do the same research. You're busy. You can save time. And when you schedule a meeting today, you'll get trial access to the #1 rated commissioning software when you enroll. This trial access is not available publicly. You can't just go to their website and sign up for a free trial. This is exclusive access that I've arranged for you to go through our training programs. So don't spend several weeks doing your own research. Schedule a meeting today to get trial access to the #1 rated commissioning software so you can see for yourself and see how to use it. So go to learncsu.com and select a time to meet to get access. What we offer here truly is the most comprehensive programs for commissioning project management ever created. Maybe there's something private that's available within a large company that you can't get access to publicly. Maybe there's something that's else is available out there, but I've never been able to find it. And I've been doing this for quite a while, searching for what exists to help people figure this out. And it just does not exist. This literally closes the gap that exists on project. Remember the gap we identified at the beginning of this presentation in the project org chart? Our program fills that gap and is the fastest method to get the skills you need for commissioning project management and access to the process and software tools required for commissioning. After working with us, you'll be able to understand the best-in-class commissioning project management processes to follow. You'll be able to configure your commissioning software to complete capital projects on time and on budget. All of this so that you can get your next project commissioning role working on the biggest and best projects in the world and be able to save your projects millions of dollars and months of schedule. Our programs show you exactly the systems and processes to follow, the CMS software that is the best for your industry, and the templates to use. This is the missing piece of projects so that you can actually complete commissioning with visibility and clarity and avoid the chaos of Cowboy commissioning. It really is painful to watch people struggle on projects without the right processes and tools because we know the solution. The answers are already here. But without this, people continue to struggle on projects until they learn the hard way over 10 years how to get all this stuff done. It drives me nuts, actually. People don't need to struggle on projects. They need commissioning project management so that the entire project team is guided to success. And this is the reason we created these programs, is to close the gap that exists on projects and stop people from struggling to complete projects. What we've put together here is perfect for individuals. With access to our commissioning jobs network, you have everything you need to get your next project role. So you can show employers in interviews that you understand commissioning project management, and so that you can excel at your next job and really make a difference on projects. You get to work on the biggest and best projects while giving your projects the best chance of success. You get a massive head start when you understand the commissioning processes and software tools required for commissioning project management. You get everything you need to make the processes much easier. This is also perfect for organizations working on projects too. Your project teams get the commissioning processes and software tools they need to complete projects much more efficiently. You get visibility and clarity on your projects so that you can complete projects as efficiently as possible to save millions of dollars and months of schedules on your projects. It's a no-brainer. Also, while being able to meet your corporate and cost and schedule objectives, which of course we need to be doing, right? You can finally fix your Cowboy commissioning so you can double your commissioning productivity, improve your team morale, and save time and money on projects to deliver them much more efficiently. Remember, clarity is kindness, and you owe it to your project teams to be the leader they need to guide them to success so they can do their best work and successfully complete projects during commissioning. So go to learncsu.com and click the big purple button to select a time to meet. If you schedule a meeting by the end of the day today, you can get trial access to the best commissioning software when you join one of our programs. So be sure to select a time today, and we can meet anytime in the next few weeks. You'll see my calendar there as long as you select a time to meet today. Now, if you don't need software access, that's okay too. Not everyone needs access to the software, or not everyone needs to know which one is the best software to use for their industry. Maybe you already have a software system selected and you've made your own determination. You can still access our training without the software trial. You can always reach out to us at any time after today to discuss our programs without the software. I just don't want you to miss this trial access to software because it's an amazing opportunity to get access to the best CMS software and learn how to use it. So if you are interested in learning about the #1 rated commissioning software and getting everything you need for your next project role, be sure to book a meeting today so we can meet and discuss. Just select a time. It's pretty easy. You can see my calendar and pick a time that works for you. If during our meeting you determine that I'm someone who can help you with commissioning, you'll get trial access to the #1 rated commissioning software when you enroll, and I'll also show you how to use it. So go to learncsu.com to see my calendar and book a meeting today. So if you do have all this figured out on your projects, and this is exactly what you're doing on your projects, you're following industry best commissioning processes, and you're using the #1 rated commissioning software for your industry, then that's actually fantastic. You're on the right track. And please keep up the good work because we need to improve project performance. And you're one of the project leaders doing exactly your part to deliver projects successfully. And I thank you for that. We need more leaders like you. However, we know that most project teams have not figured this out because the data tells us this. The data tells us that 9 out of 10 projects are late and over budget. So this tells me that most projects don't have proper processes and tools for commissioning and are still using outdated commissioning project management methods, or worse, none at all. This is specialized project management, and it's complex to learn on your own. So for those of you that are ready to get a massive head start with commissioning project management, go to learncsu.com and select a time to meet. You can see my calendar. You can select a time that works for you. And when you book a meeting today, you'll get trial access to the best commissioning software when you enroll. During the meeting, we'll talk about the things that are going wrong with your commissioning, if you're using the wrong processes or tools, what mistakes we can do to fix them, and see if I'm someone that can help you with your projects. So check out my calendar at learncsu.com and we'll have a chat. I'm looking forward to helping you and your project succeed with commissioning. All right, so that's the end of the presentation. How's everybody doing? Are there any more questions? I do have some time for Q&A here at the end of the presentation. So if you've got any other questions, shoot them in the chat and I'm happy to get your questions answered right now. While you do formulate any other questions you have and you answer them in the chat, I will go through a couple common questions that I usually get at this point in the presentation. And then if any other questions pop up there, I'll answer those as well. So often a lot of the questions I get are people ask, we rely on third-party commissioning to do this, or we have consultants that are looking after commissioning. They'll take care of everything. Why do we need more than that? Well, while you may have very smart technical commissioning experts involved, I can almost assure you that you're not getting the commercial and project management aspects of commissioning that you need. It's not their role. They do technical commissioning, not commissioning project management. These groups are great at technical commissioning, but they're not addressing the commissioning project management aspects you need for technical commissioning to be successful. And by the time these groups are involved later in your project, you've already missed your opportunity to manage commissioning. So let's have a chat and see if there are any other gaps in what you think you're getting from those groups. Select a time to meet at learncsu.com and we'll review if there's anything missing on your projects. Okay, I see a few questions popping up here. What's the cost of the program? So it does depend on the level of support that you select there, and there's not really a one-size solution that fits for everyone's commissioning needs. So book a call at learncsu.com. I'm happy to explain all the different options that are available and the pricing that's related to each one of them, and get your questions answered there. Everyone, lots of good presentation. Love it. Love the feedback there. Okay, so sometimes people also ask, why do I need this commissioning project management? Can't I just go get my PMP and that's going to tell me how to do all this? Well, when you look at PMI's information, it's pretty light on details of how to finish capital projects. What PMI's put together is excellent, but it mostly covers on how to start a project. It briefly covers quality management, but there's nothing in there on the processes or tools required for commissioning project management. The stuff we help people with isn't included in PMP. And honestly, I think this is why there's so much confusion about commissioning in the industry, is because finishing capital projects during commissioning isn't taught to project managers when they're learning about project management. Commissioning project management is the missing part of what's required to actually finish capital projects. So another common objective we hear from maybe not anybody on this call, but others working on projects is, I don't want to do this. I'm going to save my money and I'm not going to do any commissioning project management. And by skipping this, I'll save money on my project. This is too complex. I'll figure this out later. How many times have we heard that, right? Is somebody doesn't want to buy software. Somebody doesn't want to hire a few more commissioning people and they think that's going to save them money on their project. Well, this is pretty irresponsible. If you're not going to manage all phases of your project, then you probably shouldn't be starting a project in the first place. If you're only going to manage design and you're only going to manage construction, but you're not going to manage commissioning, then what's the point? Projects are only successful when all phases of projects are successful. If you think you'll save money by hiring a few less commissioning people and using Excel to track your progress, well, I'm sorry, you're in for a world of pain. It's not appropriate risk management on your projects to ignore commissioning. And when there are millions of dollars or billions of dollars involved, and sometimes this is taxpayer dollars, this is just not ethical to put this money at risk, even if it's not yours. You're deferring all the risk of your project to the end when it's the most expensive time to recover from mistakes. Schedule a meeting with me and I'll explain how this works. It's due to your project burn rate, and deferring all that risk to the end of your project and a high project burn rate at the end of your project, it's just too expensive to address. It's why projects end up late and over budget. One day saved during commissioning usually pays for all of your commissioning project management efforts. And how can you actually save your project from months or delays of commissioning project management when you're not managing your project successfully? If you can save a day on your project, then entirely it's worth it. What you actually end up doing is saving weeks and months by properly managing your commissioning. So please be responsible and understand that you're costing your projects huge sums of money by not implementing commissioning project management. I'll show you the data that explains this. Book a call and we'll go through it more in detail if you want. I developed a web-based application for the project commissioning systems called C-System. I am exploring the potential collaboration to deliver both education and systems here in Indonesia. Awesome. Yep. Sounds like we should have a chat. The more information that is spread for people to help understand commissioning project management, the better, because yeah, projects need help to figure this stuff out. All right. Another thing we often hear is, this all sounds good, but I just don't have time. You'll think about it later, right? And I totally get it. Projects are busy. Life is busy. And now might not be a good time for you, but I don't want that to be the reason that you miss out on this opportunity. So if you're at all interested in getting the tools and processes you need for commissioning project management, select a time to meet today. We've got several flexible options about start dates or payment plans or whatever you need. We've got a solution to help you figure this out. So book a call and we'll have a chat. All right. So lots of good questions in the chat. I appreciate everyone's involvement, and I'm not seeing any other questions. So go to learncsu.com and select a time to meet right away. I've got time slots available later today or anytime next week or the week after. You can see everything in my calendar. And if you have any other questions, I can address them during our meeting. And remember, you must schedule a time to meet by the end of the day today if you want to get trial access to the #1 rated commissioning software. Sorry, Ali's got a question. I have tried to log into learncsu.com, but I couldn't. I believe it's working. If you're having anybody else having problem getting in there, I can see that there have been several people that have selected times to meet already, so it should certainly be working. If not, Ali, shoot me an email and I'll help you out. We'll get you set up with your with a meeting and a time to meet. So if it's not working for you, I apologize, but I hope it's working for others because I think it is. So just reach out through our website and we'll get you in touch with what you need. So I'm here to help you lead and manage commissioning for your projects, to benefit your career, to benefit your projects, and to benefit the global challenges that we all face together on completing projects. A few things before we conclude. Watch your email. I'll send the link to my calendar so you can select a time to meet. I'll also send you a link to the replay. We talked about that earlier, so you can watch this replay again or share it with any others that you think might benefit from having an understanding of commissioning project management. One thing I do want to say, concluding here, is I think that we can all do a better job organizing our commissioning and caring for our project teams, giving people and projects more clarity on finishing projects during commissioning so we can all meet our project objectives. I do want to thank everybody for joining. I apologize for going a little bit over the time here, but lots of people stayed and participated. So thank you for joining. And I do hope to talk to you again soon. Bye for now.